Welcome to the Sean Trey Show. I've got an awesome guest with me. Now, would you like to introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do?
Yes, my name is Glenn Robert Ford, Brooklyn-born artist, writer, filmmaker, director, actor, you name it.
That's awesome.
Just trying to make grandpa stories, so to speak.
Grandpa stories.
What I mean by that is,
what do you mean by that? Because that's cool.
Yeah, what I mean by that is, if I do happen to have kids, and I would hope to live to see my children's children, so I can tell my grandkids all of the wonderful things that I've accomplished in life. That is the ultimate goal, to live to see my children's children and tell them all the things that I've done when I was young, that I accomplished everything that I set my mind and my heart out to do.
Now, see, that's what I'm talking about, man. I literally, you had some stuff you were doing, and I was sitting there, and I was all set, and I had my gear set up, and I've been thinking about trying a new set of videos where I just kind of talk to the camera and share some thoughts. And I literally did a video where I talked about one of the reasons I do this podcast is to create stuff that I can share with my daughter, and the people in generations later will be able to see and go, yeah, wow, Grandpa had some nice ideas,
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely. We only have one life,
Yeah.
I constantly say we're gonna spend more time in the ground than we are above it. So,
right. Man, that's such a powerful truth. My daughter last night, and this was a kind of ties into what we're looking at. My daughter looked up at me and she says, "Daddy," she's like, "I don't want to die." And I was like, "Whoa, it's 10 o'clock at night. How do I approach this?" And I was chatting with her, and I said, "Ilani, you're a little kid. You've got so many days ahead of you." But it put the onus on me to sit there and go, hold on. Are we really living? Are we really, really living? Am I giving her the experience that she should be having? Are we waking up to watch sunrises? Are we staying up and finding sunsets? Are we, going out and finding adventures? Because so many people are alive, but they don't truly live,
I heard this quote, and I live by it. I'm going to paraphrase it. Hopefully, I don't chop it up. But
I chop up quotes all the time.
Some people live to be 75 years old and they die at 21.
Right. We went deep fast.
I saw a meme. Huh?
We went deep fast. I love this, man.
But such is life, right?
Right. No.
I saw a meme.
Talk to me about that. You were just gonna say.
Yeah, I saw a meme of a young lady on her phone, and she's sitting across her grandfather, or what appears to be a grandfather, and the meme says she has no idea that she's running out of time.
No, man.
And that was a deep photo, man, because it's so true. You don't know how much time your grand has left.
And that was what my daughter looked at me and she said, and this is something that I wanna get either tattooed or framed or put on the wall. I need it to remind me daily. My daughter looked at me and I said, "You have so much time." And she looked at me and she says, "How many days, Dad? How many days?" Because when we distill it down to how many days, if you looked at a wall and you said, I've got 100,000 days or 10,000 or 100, doesn't matter. That number is finite. It is finite.
Right.
And at some point in time, you'll be winding down to the last 5. And you can't try to squeeze a lifetime into 5. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. My grandfather lives across the street from me. He's a World War II veteran. He's a first generation transit worker, New York City transit worker.
Wow, that's awesome.
He's the last one of 11 kids. He saw all his brothers and sisters pass away. Most of his coworkers, most of his friends pass away, and the only ones that keep him alive is his grandkids. His kids, grandkids, great grandkids. And this is a man that has been tired for a better part of the last decade and a half, but he still puts his shoes on every day. So that if that doesn't inspire you, then I don't know
Right.
what will. It inspires the hell out of me. Like, damn, I've seen it all, been through it all. I'm tired, but I'm still putting my shoes on by myself, no help.
Yeah.
Sharp as a tack at 94 years old. And I know that, the clock is winding down. So whenever I go to visit him, I make sure that I record, our conversations,
That's awesome.
so I can go back to that.
One of the things
You
that someone was talking to me about, who do you want to have on this podcast? And I was like, you know what? I want to have a regular segment where I talk to my parents, where I just have conversations with my mom and dad. Because by the time my daughter is old enough to appreciate the wisdom that my parents had, they won't be around most likely. Or they'll be older and maybe not as easy to talk to, I think my dad is going to be blissful. My mom might end up grumpy, but she's awesome. I love my mom. She's probably one of the most wise people I know. And you got to save that. You got to save those memories, man.
Yeah,
That's powerful.
absolutely.
No.
And that's exactly what I say to people when they lose a loved one. Just the other day, I found out someone lost their mother, and I always say to them that though they've gone and perished, the memories live forever.
For sure.
You can hold on to those, and it's like one of those classic records that you can replay over and over and over.
Yeah.
Obviously there'll be a void that you can never fill. You always be mourning, but at least you could play that record over and over again, and it gives you a warm, funny feeling inside. Fuzzy feeling inside.
Man, you were preaching to the choir today. I thought that it's interesting how the theme of whatever I'm going to be talking about in the podcast kind of pops up in my life beforehand. It's like there are these universal flows that we tap into. I had just written a song for my grandma. My grandma died when my mom was 13. She was, she was just this light in the world. She was just a beautiful soul. And we've got like 2 or 3 pictures of her. And that's it. You know what I mean? And so I wrote this song about her, and I sent it to my mom. And part of the message of the song is like, she's gone, but don't be sad, because her light still lives on with us. And and it's like, but we can carry that light, and we can carry that story. And so I wrote this song called Winona because I just wanted her name to be out there. I wanted her memory to be out there, And
Beautiful.
Here's the beautiful part is we all have the ability to write our songs right now, to write our stories right now. As long as you are drawing
Absolutely.
breath, you have the power to create your narrative, to create your legacy. And that's why I want to come back to your grandfather stories, man. It's such a beautiful statement, or grandfather movies, it's such a beautiful statement to make. Now, how are you going about that right now?
I'm just going where my heart and my mind take me. If they coincide, then it's I'm not gonna say smooth sailing, but at least I know where I'm going. Because if my heart is in one place but my mind is in another place, that's a battle. But if they're coincided in the same direction, then I just go where my creativity takes me. And if my heart and my mind are within that creativity, then that's when I'll focus on. But my thing is, I'm not scared to try something new in regards to creativity. I started out as a spoken word poet. I've done hip hop music throughout the years. I haven't performed on a set in a while, but I made the transition to just spoken word poetry and then eventually filmmaking. I never saw myself doing a film 20 years ago. It wasn't until I was in my early 30s, mid 30s, where I, that interest sparked. I said, I would like to do a movie. I'm not sure what my first movie is gonna be about, but it eventually fell in my lap, and it became, I guess, the first movie that I wrote and directed just happened to be so relatable to me because my father, passed away in 2018. He battled with alcohol, and my film raises alcohol abuse awareness and mental health awareness.
That's powerful, man.
So, yeah, thank you. Actually released The Fix is the name of the film, and I released it on the 3rd anniversary of my father's transition.
Wow. And I've seen your film. I've seen your film.
Oh, you watched it?
Yeah, I watched it.
Oh,
I watched
thank
it. I watched it. Man. It's a powerful, powerful
Thank
story.
you, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. So I'm actually also in the process of working on a silent film, which is an old school genre, but the premise is very modern, very today. And I'm also working on my mom's documentary. So yeah, that's an example of me just trying out different things and not putting a limit on ourselves, on myself, because our minds are limitless. So why should we be
Yeah.
limited? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that just falls in line with the grandpa stories. Gather
Yeah.
around, Grandpa Glenn is going to tell you a story about all the wonderful things he's done when he was younger, and and I want to relive that. I want to grow old and say, you know what? I wasn't afraid to try something new, and I wasn't afraid to fail, because as a baby, they're crawling to walk, and then they fall, and
Yeah.
they get up again, and they keep falling. They don't sit out in the corner and say, "Time out, take me out the game, coach." No, they keep trying. So it's like you want to keep that. You want to channel. You want to tap into your inner baby. Your inner baby is always resilient and curious and limitless. So that's my take.
It's a good take, man. I
Thank you.
often find myself looking at no worries, man. Looking at just life and being thoroughly overwhelmed. I've got this vision that I want to build. Man, I want to build an empire. I want to build an empire because I want to have the ability to influence people in a positive way, to spread goodness, to highlight people's stories that should need to be highlighted. I feel like we live in a day and age where we place undue influence on people for reasons that they shouldn't be, being highlighted. Not that they're not interesting people, but like, let me pick a person that I think that if I had the chance to interview them, I'd interview them in a totally different way, right? Let's look at the Kardashians. Kim Kardashian, interesting person, in the news all the time, right? And every time she's in the news, it's about this thing, this fashion thing, that fashion thing. I've got a renewed respect for Kim Kardashian. One of the things that was really interesting with me? How much she protects her kids. Because she's got, Kanye has mental health issues. And this is something that's been talked about. And my mom's a psychologist, and I'm not, there's no levity to people dealing with mental health issues. It is challenging. And when you deal with that stuff, it shakes up your whole family, man. And that family is under a microscope. And what I've noticed is, some of the things that when Kanye was dealing with some of his challenges, her public statements were like, she would do things to kind of protect her kids. Why do people not ask her about that? Why don't people ask her about, focusing, it's that, hey, Kim, what's your newest this? What's your newest fashion thing? It's like, this is a person who, and with the Kardashians, one thing about them is they are about family. And they might have drama on a TV show, but they know what they're doing, man. That's not real. It's you know what I mean?
I mean, they should.
But my point is, again, and this is why I'm trying to. Yeah, and I'm not a fan of that, right? I'm not a fan of that. Yeah. That's not my thing. But that doesn't have to be my thing. My thing is that the people around these people are asking the wrong questions. We're asking the wrong questions, man. That's my point with that story. And I think also, that if we can... Go ahead. Do tell. Do
Also,
tell.
sorry to cut you, but also
No,
Mike
yeah.
Tyson as an example.
Yep.
They knew him as a volatile guy
Yep.
in his 20s and 30s. He's in his, what, 50s now? So that I remember I saw a interview a few years ago where the guy was trying to bait him,
Yeah.
but Mike Tyson didn't, and he didn't entertain him.
Yep.
He actually put the reporter in his place. He said, "Yeah, I understand. I understand. I have this big magnifying glass on me because of who I am. But what if we put a magnifying glass on you?
Right.
I'm pretty sure we'll find some stuff that
Yep.
that we didn't know before."
Robert
So-
Downey Jr. was the same. Robert Downey Jr. came in for an interview, and there was this famous interview with this shock press guy from the UK. It was like, let's talk about your drug abuse. Let's talk about your father.
Mhm.
Let's talk about these things. And like, he's like, what? And he looked at him. He's like, what are we doing here? What are you doing, man?
Right.
He's like, I'm doing press for a movie. You know, I've talked about these things before. Like, you know, if you want to look at the good, that's one thing. But if you want to try to focus in on the negative, man, there's just not enough time for that. We don't have time for that.
Right.
And for me,
Right. And it's been well documented. So just go back. That's the lazy journalism.
right? And I love the story. I carry this book around. I read from it daily. Tyler Perry's Hire is Waiting. And if you haven't read it, get a copy. Because what I love about it is Tyler Perry is this amazing person in the entertainment industry right now. He is a force of nature. But when I read his book, man, he started somewhere. And there were days where he was creating his characters and he was trying to put on plays. You know, Medea and all of his characters, they were from plays. This was a play that he wrote. And this was a play that he was trying to throw in Atlanta. And he was broke. And he had nothing. And he was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent. I don't know how I'm going to pull this stuff off. But like, he believed in the message. He believed in the stories. And he believed in the characters. And he believed that he had a purpose to share these with the world. And that faith in something creates fire, man. And so when you talk about the films that you're creating, when you talk about the content, I see that fire, that purpose.
Appreciate that.
No worries, man. I don't know.
I'm not a fan. I'm not really a fan of Tyler Perry, as far as like his Medea movies. I did see Why Did I Get Married, and I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
But I do respect him.
I respect the
for his
hustle.
work ethic.
I respect the hustle.
Yes.
I respect the hustle.
Yes.
And whether you like the movies or not, this is the thing, right? That I find. I want to get on people that are far to the left and far to the right of my show. Why? Because I want people to be creating stories. Because if you create a story, then we can start a conversation. If we can't have stories, we can't have conversations. You know what I mean?
Right.
Don't go off the deep end. But you know, if it allows us to ask questions, that might be good.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
now what type of stories do you want to tell?
I was thinking about that not too long ago. I like kind of all over the place. I like to do skits and impersonations, but I also want to connect with the people with relatable stories, with emotional pieces, and that's when I decided, you know what? Let me stick with emotional pieces because a lot of people can relate to those things, i.e. the fix, where it's, addiction, mental health, domestic violence. Virtually every family has some familiarity with any of those three, especially mental health. Addiction go hand in hand. It could be a kid in the family that's stressed out about student loans or being bullied. The parents, domestic disputing, verbal abuse, myriad of things. So I feel like emotional pieces is where it's at. I have a cousin who spent 10 years in prison, came home, turned his life around, now has a nonprofit organization where they recruit, certify, and find job placement for formerly incarcerated men and women in the fitness
That's huge,
industry.
man. That's
And there's
huge.
over 250 graduates of the name of the nonprofit organization is called A Second U Foundation, and they have over 250 graduates of a second U, zero recidivism rate.
That's
Their story's been documented on CNN, NBC, the Daily News.
And this is my point, though, right? With media, why is this the first time? Don't worry, I can edit stuff out, so we're all good.
Right.
Why is this the first time that I'm hearing about stuff like that? You know, it's like this should be stuff that we talk about all the time, and one of the things, the points that's so powerful in that, like yesterday, my nephew is, I love him, but he is trouble. Kid has the ability to, you turn your back, and 2 seconds later, he has taken apart the sofa. Like, he's pretty brilliant like that. And I try not to squash that creativity, but I don't want my sofa taken apart, you know? But yesterday, I had to give him a 5-minute timeout because he had just had tore up something and it was crazy. But one of the things that was so important was, like, I recognized the second that he was done with the timeout was the most important moment. Because if I just leave him there and say, all right, you were a bad kid, timeout's done, go do what you want, that's not good. Mm-hmm. It's about bringing people back into, and so, like, such a powerful story because, so often the U.S. system so heavily punishment based, and then suddenly you've been punished. Now go fix your life. But the system is stacked against people who have been punished. You know what I mean? That have been put in prison. And we're not even discussing the fairness of the criminal justice system. We're just looking. That's a whole other deep dive. And that is, I've got very strong opinions about that. But when you have stories like this, we need to spread them, man. Need to spread them.
Absolutely. Because you never know who you may touch. You never know who's in that same position. All it takes is for one person or one entity to alter someone's life for the greater good. It takes one show, one documentary, one nonprofit organization, one individual that can just impact someone's life.
I thought about this the other day. What if they put a recording studio in every prison in the country? You know what I mean? So that people could go in there and be sharing spoken word. People could be creating stories, and so people are wanting to sit there and sitting in their space and going, what story am I going to tell? Because or just even open up that space for storytelling. I guarantee you.
Or even someone to vent.
Yep. Giving people a place to express themselves. And I mean, how do we not know that some of the greatest, musicians or artists or it doesn't have to be music. I think music would be relatable, but, giving people watercolor canvases, giving people, spaces that they can create artistically. Tell me about your stories, man.
My life story or just my creative stories in general?
So how did you get into film? Let's start there. You had said that you had gone from spoken word, but like, what were the opportunities that came up that got you started down this path?
It was just an idea that popped in my head, and I was just fortunate to have those connections at my disposal. The lead in my film is my best friend of over 30 years. Another cast member, I've known him since I was a teenager. Ari Barkin, who you interviewed.
Yeah, Ari's awesome, man.
I've known him since 2010. And the other two castmates were introduced to me by Ari. So I didn't have to look very far for my cast. I just needed a story, and I ended up writing a script, along that story. But it was just an interest of mine that developed, I want to say, in my early 30s, mid 30s. and yeah, it just kind of fell in my lap. I didn't go to school for filmmaking. I've done 2 plays in high school. One of them was Dreamgirls, and so I kind of knew, I kind of had a sense of formatting a script, but that's about it. And yeah, The Fix
Yeah,
is my
right.
first short film, so I'm still a student of the game and I'm still learning.
You know what? That's the thing, though. And one of the things that I tell every one of my actor friends is that don't wait for stories to come to you. Whether you're an actor or any type of creative, don't wait for stories to come to you. What stories do you want to be telling? Because the world doesn't need our being along for the ride. The world needs our
Right.
creative force. The world needs us to be kind of, you know, granted, there are some people that come in and step in and do what they do really well. But be the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. I love Ben Affleck and Matt Damon because those guys should never have made it in the industry. You got these two guys with Boston accents, and they weren't, they weren't your stereotypical, actors that fit the Hollywood model. But
Right.
they had a vision with what was it, Good Will Hunting. When they wrote that, it was this story.
That's a great film.
It was a great story, and that story created their narrative. And then from then on out, man, they kept telling stories they wanted to tell. And I think the world is a better place for what they brought. Because I don't know if you've ever watched many interviews of Matt Damon, but Matt Damon is a fierce advocate for education. His mom's a school teacher, and I mean, he's always going out and taking parts in in fundraising for the educational system, and he's a fierce advocate of higher education and giving people the opportunity to study, and that's awesome. That's why they started off with Good Will Hunting. It was a story at its core about education, about your gyms, the people that we have, these people that are absolutely hidden, that are not getting the opportunity to get into these schools, that might be overlooked.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Now,
Also,
go ahead.
there's also a lot of gifted kids in impoverished neighborhoods that may not be able to afford to
Exactly.
attend certain schools, and that's another conversation for another time as well. But I feel like that's tragic because you never know what you never know what they can become.
What type of stories are you? What type of stories would you like to lean in on? Because, man, you really, it was a powerful story with The Fix. What would you like to what type of topics would you like to look at next? What's next up on the
Well, before,
on the docket? Yeah, go ahead.
before, before I answer that question, I wanted to piggyback what you had said as far as waiting for stories to come to me.
Nice.
I didn't want my first film to be a rush job, so I just wanted the right story to come out, and yeah, I just didn't want to do a rush job. I wanted to make my first film an impactful one, and I like to think that we did that. I just had no idea it was going to be so relatable to my personal life. But as far as the stories that I want to create, yeah, I want to create more emotional pieces. This next film that I'm working on, it's a silent film, and it's definitely it's a love story, but it's a suspense silent film,
Interesting.
and that's all I can say. That's
That's
all I
enough.
can
That's
say for
enough,
right
man. You
now.
don't have to tell me any details.
Yeah.
Don't
But
share.
but
Don't
my
share.
mom's
Don't.
documentary. No,
Yeah.
I won't spoil it. I won't spoil it. But my mom's documentary, and I have my work cut out for me in 2022. My mom has been through a boatload of health issues.
Hmm.
She's had over 10 surgeries.
Oh
She's
man.
had 2 kidney transplants. She's had skin cancer in 2000. and she's on her second stint with dialysis.
Oh man.
So she's been back on dialysis for 21 years. And I almost lost my mom last year because she had pancreatitis and she needed emergency surgery, which was a 4-hour procedure. And the doctor said it's a good thing that you came in tonight because you wouldn't have made it through the night. It was that bad. And my mom has also dealt with an alcoholic husband for the last 15 years of his life, my dad. So my mom has been through a lot, but she still maintains, that golden smile. She's 4'9", and she's just a bundle of joy, high spirited. She's hands down the strongest person that I've ever known.
Yeah.
And I feel that her story needs to be told.
I love that, man.
Because there's a lot of young men and women that are going through what she's been through, and some of them are probably on the downside, and they're probably discouraged about their condition. And it's been documented that young folks on dialysis, they don't want to continue to be on the machine 4 hours a day, 3 days out of the week, so they give up.
Yeah.
And you have young folks that may be dealing with cancer as well. And I feel like this documentary will be a beacon of hope for young men and women, not just young men and women, but all men and women that are currently going through what my mom has been through, are continuing to go on dialysis, and they may feel down and discouraged, and hopefully they can find something that will uplift them.
I love the type of movies like, for me, I like movies that just help me try to get up in the day. When I was growing up, I went to a high school that it was kind of a conservative high school, a Christian school, and they wouldn't let us watch anything. So there were 2 movies that got looped endlessly when it was movie day. They would show essentially The Princess Bride or Rudy. I saw Rudy about 10,000 times, but you know what? It never got old. It never got old because it was so relatable to be able to, like, a person who just is having a hard time getting up that day, and I mean, and that's not even a person dealing with stuff, when you talk about people who are on dialysis, people who are dealing with major health challenges, one of the biggest problems is that people feel alone. They feel so alone. But if you can tell people, you too can overcome. You too can, and even if people are not able to overcome, letting them understand they're not alone in the experience and making them feel connected, is powerful.
Right.
That's beautiful, man. Now, if you could give advice to your younger self, what type of advice would you give your younger self?
To always be resilient, to never doubt yourself, and even if you do doubt yourself, prove yourself wrong. Don't pay attention.
Tell me about that some more.
Well, I've never heard anyone say that, but I like to think that I came up with that quote. Even when I doubted myself, I still proved myself wrong. Because we always second guess. A lot of people second guess themselves on whatever the case, and whatever the situation is. I'm my biggest critic, and there were times that I've doubted myself, but then I said, you know what? I'm capable of doing anything. And I remember my parents saying when I was a kid, you could do anything if you put your mind to it. I'm still listening to that. I'm still playing that record.
Right? It's a good record.
It's a classic record.
Yep.
So yeah, I would tell my younger self, even if you doubt yourself, prove yourself wrong. Because once again, your brain is limitless. Don't pay attention to the naysayers unless you're using that for fuel, for your fire.
Yes. You,
and never be scared to try something new.
every time most of the people I reach out to for this podcast are really awesome people. But there are a host of people that you're just like, wow, why did you even message back? And those are the ones I remember. And why do I remember them? Fuel for the fire. It's fuel. Each one of those, you're not gonna pull, you've got this number of follow, you got this, you got that. It's like, yeah, man. It's called building. It's called growth. And I might not have 1 million followers. I might not have this or that, but I've got fire. I've got fire, and I've got hustle, and you know what? That takes you far.
That's it. We're not defined by social media.
No, right?
We're defined by how we live our lives and how we treat people.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's not the number of commas on your pay stub. It's not the vehicle that you drive. It's not the clothes that you wear or the material things that you own. It's how you live your life, what's in your heart, and how you treat people.
Yeah.
That's important. That's when you're rich. When you're rich inside, that's what makes you wealthy. It's not a dollar amount. It's not material things. It's what's going on here and here.
Yep. I am. I'm a huge Keanu Reeves fan. A huge Keanu fan.
So you're saying I can dodge bullets?
Right. That's awesome. His acting is all right, but
right.
But
awesome dude.
He as a person is just this awesome person. Like when the Matrix came out, he took a massive part of his salary and gave it to the special effects department. And he's like, let's be real, man. This movie is not because of me. It's because of these guys, and the last week, I think it was last week or last month, Keanu went to one of the rap parties for his movie. Got to the club, and he didn't show up in some fancy car. He got there and it was simple driver. He got out, and he's standing outside and you're not on the list. He's like, and he didn't go, I'm not on the list. He just stepped back and stood there in the rain and called people. And never once was rude to these guys. Never once do you know who I am? I'm Keanu Reeves. This is my party. He just stood outside and waited. And he was polite and kind. And when they came in, he's like, not a problem. and there's stories all the time about him just treating people with the utmost respect and kindness. And it's amazing, man.
Riding the subway as just a regular person.
Yep.
Reading people.
And I heard a story about him riding the subway, and he gave up his seat for this old lady, and he stood there and someone took a photo of it, and it's like, he's just a cool guy, and it's like, if someone as successful as that, who has every reason to be on his high horse, can treat people with kindness, then sure shouldn't the rest of us,
Right. Exactly. I remember working at Urban Outfitters. It was 2009, and I did loss prevention, so I had to wait for all the customers to leave. And the last customer in the store happened to be Dave Chappelle and his wife.
What?
I was not in a rush to go home that night. So I'm like, he can take his time. This man broke away from his phone conversation to listen to what I had to tell him. Now, in New York City, if you're interrupting someone just to ask them for the time, depending on the person, they'll probably suck their teeth, roll their eyes, or ignore you. This man is multi-millionaire. On the phone, talking to someone, breaks away from his conversation to listen to what I had to say. He could have said, "Hey man, I'm on the phone, blah blah blah, not right now." or wait till I get off the phone or something like that. He broke away and he responded to me. That resonates with me. That will always resonate with me.
Yeah.
He always beat my good graces because of that. And Dwayne Johnson, who
See,
Ari and I work
Dwayne
with.
Johnson. I saw you. You have photos with Dwayne Johnson, and I'm a huge Dwayne Johnson fan. Huge fan.
When he approached us, well, actually, he approached us first when he entered the. It was a boxing gym
Yeah.
where we were at, and as soon as he entered the facility, he approached us, stuck his hand out, looked us in the eyes. He always talks about that, and that's exactly what he did. And there were no cameras rolling, and he was hanging out with us after the contest for about an hour, just shooting the breeze. And that says a lot about him. And he lives by this quote: "It's nice to be important, but it's important to be nice."
Yep. Yep. Well,
That's a hell of a quote.
There's one thing too, right? That comes back to what we were talking at the beginning. In 200 years, everyone on this planet will be dust. It doesn't matter if you are a king or, the lowliest person on the planet. And I'm going to put myself in the category of the lowliest person on the planet because that should be all of us. You should have that humility.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you are. You have a finite amount of time. And shouldn't we fill that time with friendships, with kindness, with love, and with experience? Right?
Right. Open-mindedness.
Yep. But I'm going to challenge you at the same way I challenge myself. You are a storyteller, my friend. We got to step up and share those stories. Because if we don't, other people will. And they might not be stories that are helping.
Right. And one of my other goals in life is to impact people however I can. I've had a hell of a journey. I used to be a personal trainer. I was doing music on a frequent basis. As I've gotten older through the music, my messages began to change. Like when I first started doing hip hop music, I was very immature. Eminem was one of my influences, so that'll tell you everything you need to know about my maturity as far as my music. But as I've gotten older, the subject matter has changed, and I do more spoken word now, and I want to impact people through spoken word. If I'm impacting people in the gym with fitness, if I can give someone advice on what modifications they can implement in their regimen or their lifestyle, I'll do that. And if I can impact someone through film, that's a greater accomplishment, even greater than all the accolades and awards that we've received. If I get a text or email or a phone call saying, this movie saved my life, the movie saved my life. And we've gotten messages from people that were alcoholics, and when they saw the main character, Marcus, they saw themselves. And that was deep. I had the opportunity of watching it with my grandfather. So that was special to me.
That's awesome.
Watching it with my granddad and watching it with my mom was like the equivalent of watching it if I had the opportunity of watching it with my father. That was like the next best. That was like the closest thing to actually watching it with my dad. But my mom had texted me and said, I watched the movie over and over. I watched it several times. I didn't expect that from her. She said she watched it several times, and there were a lot of things that she burned, a lot of thoughts and feelings throughout the years that she had burned for a long time, and she was finally able to let go after watching the movie. So then I had to call her, and she was saying that some of the lines that my character was saying to Marcus, and some of the lines that Deborah in the film was saying to Marcus, my father, well, she said to my father.
Oh wow.
So that was deep. That hit me in the feels there. You know, I had to take a step back.
Yeah, right.
Wow. So she thanked me. She thanked me for the film, and she was finally able to let go of all of those feelings, if you will.
That's powerful, man.
So that's where I'm at. Like I wanna touch the people in that regard with my creativity.
Every time I see, circling back on Dwayne Johnson, I love his Instagram because it gives me hope. Every time he sees a tour bus, like he'll pull his car up right next to him and he said, "Hey, you guys seen The Rock?" And they're like,
Yeah. Like he'll look at the camera.
Yeah.
We're like, all right, this is gonna be fun, and then he'll come out and
Yeah.
yeah. He's just an awesome dude, man.
And how I'm going to connect that to your, because I don't want to seem like I'm being insensitive to what the powerful story you just shared.
No, not at all.
And he understands the importance of connecting with people. We can connect with people in many ways, you know, but it's about, at the end of the day, it is about touching people's lives, whether it be through a dramatic story, whether it be through a sad story, a happy story. You know, can you touch people's lives? Can you really? Because what he understands is that he's not making movies for the Hollywood critics. He'll say it. He's like, I'm not making this for a bunch of people who sit in their offices whose only job is to rip films apart. Like, that's not what I'm making this stuff for. He's like, I'm making it for people like me that have had certain experiences. And his media is an extension of that. So,
case in point, Red Notice.
Right?
The critics crapped all over it. But you know what? Biggest Netflix film of all time.
You know what? And I watched it last night. It is.
Did you enjoy it?
It's modern day Indiana Jones. Like, if you put Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot into Indiana Jones and made it 2021, that's what it is. And so, you know, you can't pan it, man. It was fun. I had a blast. It was funny. Yeah. You know, people, Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne Johnson are the same character in every movie. Yeah, and they're hilarious. Like, who cares, man?
But you keep watching.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're doing something right. Keep watching.
Yeah, it's fun, and they set up.
You can't expect. There's a lot of actors that play themselves in almost virtually every movie. Will Ferrell, Jim Carrey, but you know what? They're awesome. They're awesome, and people keep watching them. So obviously, they're doing something right. It's their niche.
And they make people happy.
So,
and at the end of the day, if you're making people happy, you're doing something right.